Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm back to give you another, video on books. Obviously, it's why you're here. I am once again doing another unhaul process. I am once again reevaluating my book collection, asking myself what books do I need right now as I'm in this sort of constant state of flux. So I'm decided to trim off a lot of books. And in part of that process, there were a small collection of books that I feel really unsure. Like I know I want to read them, but I also can see myself pushing them off indefinitely. So I'm here to give myself a fun project, just for fun. Worst case scenario, get rid of all of them. So what? We're calling it Read or Unhaul Extreme Edition. It's the Extreme Edition because I think normally people have this plan for themselves where they're say, okay, I'm going to read these or I'm going to unhaul them at the end of the year. I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to say I have this list of books, about 12 or 13, and every month I have to remove one that I haven't read from that list. So it incentivizes me not just to read them throughout the year, and it also incentivizes me to read them faster. And I know how my mind works. I know when it comes to long projects, I lose interest. And so this, I think, could really work to help encourage me to read the books that I'm really excited to read, while simultaneously getting rid of the ones that I'm not. And even those that I get rid of, if something time comes where I'm excited to read them again, I can still do it. I just don't need to physically own them because I mostly read by audiobooks anyways. I just have too many books. That's what I'm realizing. Because I'm moving again. There's like a lot of books here, mostly because I just couldn't figure out which ones I want. But let's just go through them. Okay, first up we have Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. I've tried reading one of her books. Couldn't get into it. I just wasn't vibing with the writing. I want to still try, probably because I own this and because the cover and like the gothic nature of her works still appeals to me. Like the idea of it appeals to me. I know she's so popular. I want to give it another shot. Next up is one that I actually already started. Spoilers, because it's I guess it's a good indicator of how this project might go. This is Hazard of Time Travel by Joyce Carol Oates. Oates can be a little bit academic, I know, in some of her works, but also not always. I found some of her works quite captivating. I am not really sure what it's about. I mean, I can tell you what I've learned in the first 20 minutes of listening to the audiobook, but I just know that I like time travel, so I saw this at one point when I was still ordering from Book Outlet, and I haven't gotten rid of it since because I like time travel. I've not heard anything about this, which is why I don't really feel like I need it. I had no connection to it, other than the fact that I like time travel. I know it will be an easy read, hence it being the first one. I have a feeling some of these are going to win while they get read just because they're easier to access, more accessible as far as audiobooks, but also easier to process. And that's going to be an unfortunate side effect, but I'm giving myself, I guess till they run out, right? I either read them or I get rid of them, and it has to choose one at the end of each month. I'll do an update at some point once I have gone through a sizable chunk. I don't know, or maybe I won't if I give up on the channel. Who knows? But while we're here, let's pretend like this channel is going on. Next up, we have Goliath by Tochi Oniruchi. Yes, literally my last video, I think. I just hauled this, and I don't want to get rid of it because, well, it's signed edition. But at the same time, I can't say I'm that enthused by this book. And I can foresee it being on my shelf for years. Or worse, if I'm unhauling a bunch that don't appeal to me directly, this will be one of them. And I just can't do that because one of her great things, actually, those opinions I care about. And two, it's signed. And it seems like it's a really good deal if I can end up liking this. I won't say too much about my unhaul process because I'm unhauling a lot of books. And it's quite difficult. But let's not get lost in the weeds of that conversation. That can be its own project, its own conversation if we're interested. Next up we have a book by Catherine M. Valente, Space Opera. The best thing I can think about this is that she has been compared to Douglas Adams, which I can enjoy. Like I know I've enjoyed some books. For some reason I'm almost a little turned off, not say turned off. I'm a little hesitant because I'm worried it won't work for me. Because sometimes there are books that I feel like lean into the camp in a way that just doesn't work for me. It feels unbelievable. But I don't think that means I don't like camp. I think there's a fine line between camp and just lazy writing. And I think that's the line that I'm having trouble seeing sometimes. I've also had this compared to books like Sean McGuire's Middle Game in the sense that mesh of science and fantasy. I actually think I picked this up because there was an Ask Me Anything like on Reddit with Sean McGuire, and I asked her what book would she recommend reading if we liked her book, and she recommended this. So next up we have two, I think, epic fantasies, or big fantasies, which are why I'm hesitant to read them, to be honest. Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. I have so many big fantasy works, just big, let's say fantasy. Whether it's fantasy or sci-fi, it's some kind of big series. Those are as exciting, can be as exciting as they are intimidating. And that's why I haven't really gotten to this one yet, or any of these, because I have so many that I feel like I need to finish the series that I'm in, or even just the current book that I'm reading. I still haven't finished the new Stormlight Archive book, but I'm still going to try. I know that if I try to consume too many or too many at once, I will lose interest, and that may happen. That's going to be kind of some of these books, like this one, I think have a higher hurdle to overcome, and I'm not going to lie about that. Eventually, I'll probably try and start it. The question is whether or not I click, and that's, I don't necessarily think I will, just because I know how hard it can get for me to really get into a really dense narrative, a really dense world building is what I mean to say. Sometimes it takes me a couple times to read through, and I'm just not committed enough to these to actually do that. Next one we have Black Sun. I think I'm a bit more excited about this one, but I've also heard mixed reviews of the second book, which is more of the reason I've not read it. But really, it's the same boat as the other book, is that it's a big world building story of some type that I'm worried I have trouble getting into. But nevertheless, I want to read it, and I don't want to just get rid of it. And this is just a great opportunity to encourage myself to at least try to branch out and try something that I'm willing to maybe buy that I still want to read, And if not, it's something in the world. If I get rid of the books, I can still read them down the line when I think to myself, I'm in a good headspace to try and challenge myself with a really big world-building type story, whether it be this one or Marlon James's book. Next up, we're getting into books that don't have audiobooks, hence the hurdle. Because here we have an anthology, Robots vs. Fairies, edited by Dominique Parison and Nova Wolf. I've read one of their collections, I think, and I thought it was mid. This has a good collection of people: Catherine Valente, John Scalzi, Ken Liu, Sean McGuire, Alyssa Wong, people that I have really enjoyed. Also, I want to read more stories about Faye. Simple as that. It's not on audio. So either I sit down or I do a text-to-speech. And text-to-speech is good for some things for me, but for some other things, like things that have a lot of world building or that take time, it takes time for me to be able to get into the narrative, like hear this sort of flat tone throughout or this flat voice throughout, and be able to figure out who's talking, or rather stay focused on who's talking and what's happening, because I don't have the extra context of the way that the speech is being done, the emotion that was being spoken. And when it comes to short stories, it's just hard to get through. In other instances, it was quite easy. Like I remember reading a really bad text-to-speech version of Maya Angelou's one of her work, a lot of her works, because they're not on audio at all. And I just found it really easy, partly because I just loved her writing, to get into that story. While here, the nature of anthologies is just dynamic styles, and that changing is going to be hard. I think there's at least one book here that I know will have to be read physically in my eyes. That'll be the biggest hurdle, because I'm reading the book I was reading this time last year, I think. I'm actually enjoying it. I'm more than at least halfway through it, I think. But it's like I'm just a very slow physical reader. But also I'm just slow to allow myself time for that, because usually I will do other things. I have to really want to try something. Next up, we have a book that is popular among nonfiction folk, and I like nonfiction, and I trust their opinion, so I picked it up. I like science books that are pretty fixated on the science and less on the narrative, or generally speaking. The Genus of Birds, I believe, is a book about birds, but it's also, I imagine, my assumption is that it's going to be not strictly just a scientific book about birds. It's going to be more of an interpersonal narrative of some sort, which I'm not opposed to, but that's probably the biggest reason I haven't picked it up and given it a shot. This is one that I think has a decent chance of getting read, just because it's like the other fantasy or the other sci-fi speculative books. It's on audio, and I don't expect it to be a difficult read. Also, I'm pretty sure several of these, at least half of these, were backlist. Next up, we have another book that is not on audio. And honestly, even when I say this, I'm not sure if I'm going to read this. Girl Meets Boy, Ali Smith. I think Ali Smith is queer. I think that's one reason why I've stayed connected to it. It's sort of a Greek retelling. When I say Greek, it's sort of a mythical retelling. I'm assuming Greek. I'm not quite sure. I don't know. We'll see if I read it. When I made this list, it called to me. But my feelings are ebb and flow. This is another one that I think would be an easy read. One that I would otherwise unhaul, because I've never heard of it. But that does appeal to me in its premise. That is to say, The Wanderers by Meg Howry. I think it's a book about space travel to Mars and settling there. Ironically enough, I just listened to a book about settling on Mars. Next up is a horror book that I think will really just get down to whether or not I like the author's writing. Erotat by Christopher Golden. I've heard it's just a good horror book, not just horror, but survivalist fiction. I think it'll be a fun read if I get into it. So Another book that is on here because, you know, it should make for an easy read. Another book that is not on audio, probably not even, maybe on text, but this is one I would actually sit down and read, The Ascent of Man, which I've never actually watched it. There's a documentary, much like Cosmos. And I feel like, even though this is an old book, I have plenty I could learn about evolution that I just don't know. And this would be probably a great introductory work. Whether or not I actually sit down and do it, I think it's a very low chance. The thing is just that it's a really nice copy. It's old, but it's very nice, pictures and everything, and just, I don't want to get rid of it. If I really want to read it, so yeah, I'm here. We're here and we're queer. A book that's not on audio at all, but it's also short, Hypatia of Alexandria, a short biography or about Hypatia. And I've always been intrigued by her as this mathematician who I believe died during the burning of Library of Alexandria. And I'd love to learn more. Whether or not this is a reputable source, I honestly don't know. But I really do want to learn, and I think this is one of the books I'm most excited to read, and I just haven't because it's not on audio. Even more than Robots and Fairies, I think there's a good chance I sit down and read this because of this project. A similar one, it's more of an academic biography of Harriet Tubman, the life and life stories. I read at least 2 books about her. They were on audio, and they were fine. This is one that I know is more academic. There's so many different like notes referencing things, and I suspect I could do text-to-speech for this. Probably would, but depending on how academic it is, I might end up wanting to sit down and read through it. And it's like one of those things where it's just my desire, the level of attention I want to give to it is just, but constantly I'll put it on the like, I'll do it later, and it just never happens. And finally, another one that I'm interested in, just because I don't always read a lot of poetry, and I need to, I want to try and read at least some occasionally. I read Elizabeth Acevedo's work before. I've enjoyed it. And generally speaking, poetry is easy to enjoy and get through. Also an audio narrated by the author. So there's a really good chance I read this one, to be honest. So why am I doing this if I think I know how it's going to turn out? I guess that's a good question. Is it going to turn out the way I think it is? Just because these are books I want to read, and I want a project I'm struggling to read lately. And I don't do TBRs anymore, and maybe TBRs are good though. It gives me something to focus on, something to think, have I read that? Let me prioritize that. And it just helps me drive, and I've requested at least 3 or 4 of these books, and I already picked one up, and I think there's a good chance that I keep doing that. I might take pauses, that's fine. If I do that, I'll unhaul. It's a give and take. I'm just trying to think what would work for me, and yeah, so that's where I'm at. Let me know what you think of these books. If you watched to the end, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, your attention. I hope you've enjoyed this. Have a great day, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.